Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of The Talking Point with me, Chris Jack, and my long-standing partner in crime, Stevie Clifford. Stevie, how are we?
Yeah, good. Good, thanks. Another interesting show to look forward to. Here was me thinking that we might have had a good run of form and we could talk about the victories over Celtic and Aberdeen and stuff, but there's always more pressing matters at the moment, isn't there?
I guess we start every show and we round off every show by saying next time we're going to talk about football because things are going to turn. Not quite happened yet, but there's still time in what is left of this campaign. Hopefully, as Stevie touched on there on this show, as you know by now, hopefully we get into one of the big talking points and take a bit of a longer look at one of the issues either on or off the field, mainly off the field so far this season. And today we're going to look at the first month of Patrick Stewart's reign as Rangers chief exec. Obviously, as we've discussed on the show previously, it was quite a long search to find James Bisgrove's replacement. Patrick finally came into the club and started the day after the League Cup final defeat to Celtic. We were at his first media briefing. He spoke to a handful of press guys ahead of the game against St Johnstone last weekend. Before we get into the detail of the meeting, Stevie, and look at some of the main kind of talking points, broadly, do you think it was a good idea for Patrick and the new chairman, Fraser Thornton, to make themselves available and to actually come and meet people and kind of put names to faces?
Originally, I probably would have said no, because I thought my first impression last week was, given the strength of feeling after the Dundee game and things, that it was probably a situation that should have been well left alone. Would it have went down better this Saturday after a better victory during the week? And I think it probably would have. My first impression, Chris, was that maybe better not to stir the hornet's nest, because such was the feeling last weekend that all they really wanted to hear out of Patrick Stewart's mouth was the manager was gone. And that's quieting down slightly, and especially after the results, the away form and run and things like that. I just didn't think it was great. Aside of that, did he give us overly a lot of information? I think when you talk about the football review, the sceptical side, and most people, again, it goes down to what people thought at the time and how the kind of vibe was amongst the sport, that it was just another review. It's just another kind of look at the structure of the club, and we never really find out what they found and their findings, and nothing ever really comes of it from a supporter's point of view. They might make sense, and I understand why they would do it. But for us, it's like, well, what do we learn? Because a couple of years on, we're back doing another one. So that was a kind of, and said the transfer thing was neither here nor there. I think we're all of a mind that we thought maybe a lone player come in, maybe a kind of Bosman target coming in early, if that's the kind of route we're going to go down, Chris. But I don't think any of it was overly surprising. In hindsight, I probably feel it was a better idea now than it was last weekend, timing wise. I don't know if you feel the same, Jake. That's fair.
I was surprised they decided to do it last week. It almost felt like Philippe Clement kind of railroaded Patrick Stewart into having to say something, though, because he had mentioned that he drip fed it into a couple of pressers before, and then I think it was the Hibs game through Easter Road. He almost set a timeline of Patrick will speak to you now. So I think the club didn't really have much choice in terms of actually doing something. It was then shifted to the Saturday morning. It was actually more in depth than I expected to be. I thought he'll maybe come in, he'll read off some pre-prepared words from a bit of paper, maybe take a couple of questions on the record, and that will be that. But you can split it into two sections. Also discuss the managerial situation, then took questions on that, discussed transfers and the review, and then took questions on that. I think it's maybe on the record for 42 minutes. So you can't ask for any more in terms of somebody giving up a Saturday morning. Now, it was obviously good for them to get whatever messages they wanted out. I think it was good from our perspective, certainly, to meet him and get more of a chat. I think we both saw him, was it the Dundee game at Ibrox a couple of weeks previously? He came in and said hello, but that was just a very brief, hi, I'm Chris, hi, I'm Stevie, hi, I'm Patrick. I think that was a chance to actually get a bit more out of him. So, like you, in hindsight, it looks better a week on than I felt it could potentially go for them last week. If we skip to the end and then we'll go back to the start, almost you actually got a couple of minutes with him after the tapes were off, and you're able to speak to him just as a supporter, as a member of the fan media, and almost kind of tell him this is what you've walked into, this is how this is going to go. And again, I thought that was good of him. He didn't have to take that time. It wasn't a case of tapes off, right, off we go. Him and Fraser Thornton kind of mingled for a wee bit. Happy to like a bit of chat with a couple of the press boys there. And I thought his time with you certainly represented him in the right manner.
Yeah, I think it did. I was impressed by how he came across. I don't think that's in question. I think he's a fairly decent guy. He certainly knows or projects that he knows what he's doing. I think that's a better way of describing it, because if we go about and put all our eggs in our basket and say he knows what he's doing, it doesn't turn out to be, then it'll be another case of Stevie backing the wrong horse. So I'll just say that he projects that he knows what he's doing, and he has like a plan for the club and things like that. Yeah, I spoke to him at the end. He was good. He came over and he says, "What did you think?" And I says, "Look, can I speak to you from a supporter's viewpoint?" And he said, "Of course, of course." I just said, "You know that I've followed the club for a very long time, and I just feel that this message at this point in time will not be well received, because all the fans want to hear at the moment is regarding the manager." And I basically just said to him it wasn't good enough, the situation we find ourselves in, and that, as a club, the most troubling thing is we need to normalise what we're doing. And he was great. It wasn't, let's be clear, it wasn't a rant. I didn't go and tell him anything or what we were sharing feelings. It wasn't a firm discussion where I was pointing at him and telling him, as you well know, that I don't mean to come across as being something it wasn't. Mm-hmm. But he took it really well, and he was great. And he actually said, "Look, Stevie, I think the biggest thing here is that we could sack the manager, and it would be the easiest decision and the easiest win we can get, but we don't feel that it's worthwhile, because this is deep-rooted. This is not Philippe Clement. This is everything we're doing in this environment as a football club." And he was very quick, and at that point, Fraser Thornton also interjected, and they were like, "Look, we know what the issues are. We know what the issues are here at this football club." And Fraser even said it. He says, "Look, like you, I'm a long-standing supporter. I go everywhere, and I'm not going to be making decisions unless I know that they're for the better of the club. And we know the challenges we face, and nothing's a surprise." But they were both very firm on, we know what we're doing. And it was interesting as well. I spoke to John Gilligan just it was actually last weekend, just before that home game against St Johnstone, and he said to me, he says, "Look, Steve," he says, "we're going to be okay off the park." And he says, "On the park, we all know where we need to go, but off the park, we're on a right good track." So that was interesting, because I don't think that John Gilligan would say that lightly, being in his position as a fan, like us, more or less. And yeah, he got to be chairman for a few months, but John Gilligan has been there. He's been active, not in the protest world as such, but active in that kind of environment. He's worked with the trust and things in the past, and I don't think he would say that lightly to myself or another supporter if he didn't feel that way. So I'm not going to say it's promising or whatever, but it was a slight bit of reassurance. And I think that the fact that Patrick Stewart, Chris, was able to take that on board and listen to it from a fan's point of view. And he said as well, he said, "Look, I know the reaction, but I'm better to be honest and out there than shy away from it." So it was interesting. The main headline, Chris, obviously was the backing of the manager. it's a really difficult one because at home we're prime AC Milan in the 90s and then away we're Gretna. So do you think it'll prove to be the right course of action for Patrick and the club?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think that was the question that everyone had beforehand. That's the big question everyone had as soon as Patrick had finished speaking, and that's going to be the question every time that Rangers play. That question is still going to come back. Ultimately, only time will tell if Philippe Clement is a success or not as Rangers manager. I think we've done enough shows, we've written enough articles and blogs over the last few months. I think people know where we stand on the manager, where we stand on this team, some of the concerns that we have. Yes, I think you can take into account some of the challenges that he's had. He's referenced that in his pressers of late as well. So I don't think it's a case of every single Rangers fan is against him. We see it on the show. You speak to people at Ibrox and they still say, I'm not on this bandwagon, I'm not on this Clement out wave. But I think it's safe to say that the majority are, and I think we've both touched on it the last couple of weeks. When you get to this stage, when you lose the fans, you see the reaction. That night we were up at Dens Park, seeing how Ibrox has been since. It is a difficult situation for him. He does have a long way to go to get back, but he now does have that backing. He's got that backing on the record. It's not just him saying after Dens Park, it's 200%. That is now, it's there in black and white. It's on the tape. It's on the records. I think that should give him a bit of breathing space to an extent. But we know what's coming up in terms of the matches. We know the challenges that's coming up, and if Rangers falter at any of those hurdles, we know what the reaction is going to be. We know what the questions will be. So I think he will feel a bit better about the situation now that he does have that public backing. But the challenge for Clement has not changed. He has to win more games of football and has to win them well. At Ibrox, the performance levels have to be better. The victories have to be more comfortable. And away from home, well, the scope for improvement is just massive. So that's the challenge for him, and that's what he has to prove. It looks like he won't be doing too much in terms of transfer window. So what he's got right now, we expect to see Lyle Cameron coming in. We expect to see a centre half coming in, probably a loan. I don't see Rangers spending a lot of money this month, given the uncertainty over Clement. I don't think it'd be the right thing for them to go and commit more fees or more loan to buys with options or obligations. So I think they'll get through this month. They'll do what they can do, both in and out, and it's then all focus on the summer. And I think Patrick Stewart almost kind of admitted that himself at this. He said this isn't the window where you go and you rebuild the squad. January's just not that time, and it was almost kind of like lowering, not lowering expectations, but I think kind of making it quite clear. MD expected 5 players to come in for Rangers to kick on the second half of the season. It's not happening. I think he set the bar where we all expected it to be set. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's expected. See, before I discuss that, I want to just to make a point on Clement, and I'm sure you probably feel this way as well. And after the 4 away games and after Dundee, I thought that was it, because the way we looked at Dundee, we looked like 11 strangers. There was no press. It was a mess, and we didn't look up for it, and the players didn't look up for it. And you would accuse the players on a night like that of, are you really playing for the manager? Because some of their performances were awful. And then you shift and you go to Aberdeen, and although they're in a slump and everything else, you know what they're going to bring to you. You look at the Celtic game as well, and you think, why can we hit those levels and look so comfortable and so good and attack so well? And I know we don't score all our chances, but I think we had 29 shots against Aberdeen the other night, and it's a far more cry than the Dundee United game, for example, at home, where nothing really happened. And I come out the other night, and you have this feeling in your head of it's almost like a sense of, I don't know, like, have I got this wrong? Is Clement, have I been too unfair? but it's such polarising levels that it's so difficult to, as you pointed out, it's not just me or other people in the media that are saying that his time's up or whatever we were saying. It's widespread throughout the support. There's a minimal kind of support for him, and it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. I think Patrick Stewart. The other thing to look at as well is slightly on the Patrick Stewart thing, and has he done the right thing? What's the alternative at this moment in time? There isn't really an obvious chance. Even the old backup of Manchester United, let's get Ole Gunnar in for 6 months. He's away to Besiktas, so I think that option's going as well. But
much disappointment, I know.
I know, it would have been fun. But in all seriousness, if Clement can fix the away form and become consistent, then he'll win some people back. I don't think it's the difficulty he has is if he has a February like he did in December into January, where we go to the kind of, I know Dundee United's at the end of January, but if we go Dundee United, Kilmarnock, Hearts away, etc., and they flunk and don't pick up anything, it's difficult because the longer that run goes on, the more people will point to it. So, in answer though, Chris, and back to January, and is it expected? Yeah, I think it is. I think we were all fairly realistic of. And by the way, if you're getting to January and you're needing to make 5 signings and spend money, it's a pretty bleak situation to be in. So, ideally for Rangers, that the January transfer window is one that they can top up. That's the way we should be looking at it. I know that we need players. Look, the squad isn't perfect. We know we need players. At the same time, it's starting to look like last summer is bearing fruit a wee bit more when you look at Jeffy Eagleman, when you look at potentially Enciala coming in. Barron's already kind of proven himself. Although, yes, he has dipped in form. He'll be a good addition. Ironically, as difficult as it is, I thought Robin Proper began to settle and not look fantastic. He's got a long way back, but he began to settle. And then he gets injured, and it's potentially a longer one. So I'm not saying he's the answer, or I'm not saying suddenly that he's the new Amarus or whatever. He had began to settle down a wee bit, and you just wonder that perhaps the summer's starting to look a wee bit better than it did at the time, certainly. But in this window, Chris, no, I expected like you, could they get a Bosman in earlier? Would that be Lyle Cameron? A lot of things are pointing to the fact that it might be, so we need to see what happens with that. Would they then get a defender that maybe they're looking at in the summer? They've been heavily linked to the Moroccan boy Akbar from Sevilla. That's an interesting link, one that doesn't seem to be going away. They're linked with another couple of centre halves. So could they maybe bring somebody in early? Is there a deal there to be done? We'll need to just wait and see. But I don't think it's a huge surprise. I think you touched on it. I don't think it's a huge surprise. But I am interested, Chris, that if you think about, excuse me, what we are doing at the club at the moment, obviously Sean Jefferson's come in commercially. He's doing a complete review of that scenario. Commercially, what we are doing. I know that they've had experts in looking at the medical department, which was something I mentioned to Patrick Stewart as well, and they're looking at that. Now they're doing a review of the footballing department. I don't mind these things, Chris, but we need answers from it, I think, and I think that's important. How do you feel about being back in the situation where we're essentially reviewing the whole club from scratch?
When you are a couple of seasons on from winning the league, when you're even a shorter time frame on from getting to Europa League final, it does seem slightly strange that you have to basically go back to the drawing board. Now that should have been done and has been done. As soon as Patrick Stewart said internal review, my mind just cast back to every Rangers chief exec or every guy in a suit who's had this plan of, we'll look into this and we'll find what's wrong and we'll make it better. It's not really been a whole lot better at various stages over the last 10 years or so. So I think I don't think it's a bad thing, but the goodness of it, if that's the right phrase, will only be found by what they actually, one, what they uncover, and two, what they're then able to actually put into place. If there's different personnel, if it's a different structure, if it's external finance, whatever they decide Rangers need has to be put in place and it has to work. You can't keep going through this cycle of, well, we'll go back to the drawing board every 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. That's no use for anyone. A couple of things that they've done of late don't quite tie in with that review period for me. You look at Niels Coppin being promoted to technical director. For me, that should have been done after this review. You look at the decision they've made in terms of the B team. Should that not have been done after this review as part of a review of Auchenhowie? I'd maybe say these things should have been done post-reviews rather than pre-review, but they clearly feel those were the right decisions to make at those times. They clearly feel that the manager's the right man to be in place right now. So really interesting to see what this review actually brings. And Patrick Stewart outlined the timescales for it over the next couple of months. I would hope that once it's finished, he has us back in and they do another press briefing or a press conference to let us know, to let him be questioned on it, and more importantly, to let the fans know. The fans need to know whatever this document is going to look like, however many slideshows are going to be in it. The fans need to see it, need to know what's going to be in it, and they need to know what's going to be actioned on. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but it doesn't really, to go back to the protests and stuff that we've seen over recent games, I don't think you can completely defend the board and say, well, everything is fine, these are the right people to run the club. But then you've got two guys and the chairman and chief exec coming in saying, well, there's problems here and we need to do a review. Those two things don't tie up. If everything is fine, you don't need a review. If you find a review, there's obviously been problems. And the people who are against the board will say, well, these problems have been here for long enough. It's time for change at that level. So an interesting couple of months ahead, I think, to see what this uncovers.
Patrick Stewart, in fairness, did say that we would learn, didn't he, from the... He used a phrase, I think he didn't want tied down to a specific length of time to do the review. He didn't want to say it'll take 12 weeks and then 12 weeks for us to be, well, where is it? Because we know what we're like as a support.
We're in the club saying, where is it? We want to speak to someone.
Yeah, we're like, this is 15 minutes overdue. It should be done in 12 weeks. So I think he was keen that he would share the outcomes. And I think what you say there's a good point about the two not aligning. But I think when you go back to potentially what the chairman and what the CEO said, and even John Gilligan, I think that they'll, even without a review, have identified in their heads where it's gone wrong and what they need to reset and what they need to realign. So I'm hopeful. I'm not confident because we have been here before, but I'm hopeful, Chris, that finally, if we can get everything aligned off the park and at least seem competent, and when we go back to what we said, what was our new year want for Rangers, and we both said kind of normality and things like that. That's what I hope that this review will bring. Identify the areas where we need improvement commercially. I think since James left, there's been disconnect there. There's been some unrest. I think we need, obviously they've changed back their kind of catering provider and things, and as much as that may be a small point, I think in terms of happiness from commercial side of view and guys that do spend a lot of money in corporate, that's made a big difference already, and there's a better atmosphere there. And I think if you can fix the smaller things and join the dots throughout the club, I think it becomes a wee bit better. And that's my hope, I think, for the review side of things.
I think when you mention those small points there, that people might think, well, it's only pies and bovril, or it's only something else. It's only behind the scenes. It's only, obviously there's an appointment coming in the communications department that we spoke about previously as well, with Greg Mailer coming in April time. All these things may seem like small things in isolation, but when you add them all up, the managers speak about marginal gains and finding those small percentage points. A club like Rangers, you need everyone on side. Everyone has to be pulling in the same direction, from boardroom to the kit man. Everyone, like you mentioned that word alignment there, everyone has to be going in the same direction. And for too many periods recently, it has felt a bit it's not quite all lined up. It's not quite all joining the dots, as you said. So I think that's something that has to be improved. Relations, obviously, with the support have to be improved. That will come if matches are won. There is no better way to get people back on side than winning games of football and by going and winning trophies. Obviously, the title out with the reach now, unfortunately. But if Rangers can have an improved run, if Clement can fix some of those issues that we've talked about, that will improve the mood. That will make Patrick Stewart's job easier, and everyone will start feeling a bit better about the club and a bit better about themselves again. As I touched on right at the top of the show, he's only been in position for a month, so he's done this. He's done his first press briefing. Obviously, spoke to RTV after he came in. First couple of days were taken care of, dealing with SFA matters on the back of the League Cup final, and I think it's important to say Rangers have put a lot of faith in Patrick Stewart. They've decided this is how the club is going to be run. We've had a couple of pieces on the site looking at the role and responsibility that he's been given. We had a piece on the site after the AGM looking at how the makeup of the board and how that's going to feed into the investor pool, how that's going to change. There's a lot of faith being put in Patrick Stewart, and I know we're titling this inside his first month as chief exec, but you can't really judge the man after 4 or 5 weeks in office. It's going to give him 6 months, give him the review period, see where we are at the end of the season, see what decisions he makes heading into the summer, and we then get to this time next year. That's when I think you can really have an idea of whether Rangers have backed the right man in Patrick Stewart, whether he's made good progress, whether he's made mistakes. It's important. I know there's this anger and there's this apathy amongst the fans. Everybody wants change yesterday. They've got change in terms of a new chief exec, a new chairman. You have to let that play out.
Yeah, look, I think you summed it up nicely. I think we can't judge him after a month, but he's certainly been busy, and he's been forward in his kind of presentation to the media side of it. He's done obviously his RTV stuff. He's done the rounds in Ibrox. He spoke to a lot of people. He's addressed the kind of fans, and I don't think he's hidden from, in that message or in that briefing last weekend, there was still the message that he's not made promises to the manager. He's not, this has to get better. It's not like they've went in and said, look, it's okay, just keep on your trajectory. They've said this must improve. We must get better results, and he's been left in no uncertain terms that that's what they have to do. So as far as our first month goes, you can't judge him. We need to see where we are in 6 months. Does he keep his promises? Will he publicise the review? Will he be able to make those appointments in the medical department, etc., that we're going to need? Is he going to normalise a football club so that a commercial guy coming in isn't a big deal? It isn't worth talking about because it's normal. But for us at the moment, they're all highlighted as a big thing. So, yeah, I think he's done fine. He seems approachable. He seems like a knowledgeable guy. He seems like he knows, or as I said, go back to projects. An air of confidence, I think, around him, and that he knows what he's doing. So this will all be judged in time, absolutely, Chris. But as you said, we're a month in. It's been a busy month for him. He hasn't shied away from it. He's taken a very difficult decision to stick with the manager when it would have been easier to go the other way. So let's see how the next couple of months and weeks progress, and we can revisit this one. I think this will be a show to revisit in a few months' time when the review comes out, certainly, and we can in depth have a look at what he's found and what we're doing. And I would imagine most of it's going to be surrounding the kind of training ground and expenditure and things like that. And when you look at them scrapping the B side of it and things, I think that these are the type of sacrifices or things that will come from the review about how we're spending our money.
As you say, that's definitely a talking point theme for us to get back on in the not too distant future. Stevie, thank you once again for your time as always. And as you know by now, I have to end with a plug. If you like what we do here on the channel, please subscribe And of course, head over to the website for what we call the best Rangers journalism. We don't do it because it's a nice tagline. We do it because we believe it, giving you the best insight, analysis, breaking news on transfers, certainly during this month, and everything else in between. So thank you for your time. As always, thank you for your support, and we will see you soon.